All right.
So wait another minute, or actually 2 minutes, I see.
You got 1 minute, Ed.
I just sent the link to Eric and Elsie,
Right.
so they'll be along.
The clock I have actually is a Heathkit clock. One of the few things I built in my youth that actually worked. It's a Heathkit clock, and it must be 35, 40 years old, and the thing still is keeping good time.
More accurate. That clock is more accurate than most of the battery operated clocks I have in my house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My laptop is synchronized with Meinberg, and I know that's pretty accurate.
Yeah, it's quite a, I actually have another clock from the new Heathkit, the one that was in China. I haven't put that one together yet though, but one of these days I will. If they let me use
Well,
a soldering iron in the nursing home, I'll use that, so I'll make it then.
Don't you miss the old Heathkits? You know, when I was first starting out in this, I built my whole test bench worth of test equipment. from
Yeah, I also missed the original Lionel trains and Annette Funicello, but one must move on. You know?
Ed, is that one of those? Is that one of those clocks that uses WWVB on very low frequency?
No, this was just plain old AC/DC kind of stuff.
Okay.
No, this was an older one, so it still works really well. Got through college with me and the whole bit. If that clock could talk, boy, let me tell you. All right.
So Ed, before we get started, some nomenclature. I'd like to just request everybody to mute yourselves unless asked by Fred or someone else to unmute. And then later on, we'll have question and answer period. And then you can unmute yourself at will. That's it.
Okay. All right. Fred, did you want to have questions at the end or in the middle?
You know, I honestly, I think this works best. If people have questions as we go, just stop and ask away. You know, the intent of this is to do two things. One is to have a little fun. I've got a lot of content, pictures and things that we've been involved in and bringing new people into amateur radio and doing stuff in schools. And, you know, I'm also anxious to hear if all of you have some ideas on some of these kinds of programs, what you think, or maybe you've done something similar.
Well, maybe what we can do is if anyone has a question, why don't you write it out on chat, and Rob will then monitor that. And if you feel there's an important question, Rob, maybe you want to do it that way. You would cut in.
That's fine. I mean, I'm just trying to keep down the back chatter. Some people, like myself included, I have background noise here, and I mute myself just so you don't hear my background noise. That's the only reason, really.
Yeah, I just think it's a little easier to go through one person than to. So if you have a question for Fred, or Phil, you can put it in chat, and Rob will coordinate with Fred.
All right. And what I'll try and do, there's a couple of points in here that are sort of natural stopping points. Maybe we'll stop a couple times and just see what's on everybody's mind. That way we can,
Okay,
you know, get the best of both worlds here. So
that's good. Brad, you look a lot like John McCain. So
oh my God. Well, let me go change my shirt.
no, this is
I really don't want to look like a
no,
politician.
I said Brad, not Fred.
Oh, Brad does. I'm sorry.
Brad looks like him. Yeah, interesting. All right, Eric, you look like Eric, and there you go. Good to have you back again. All right, we'll get started. I'll call this meeting of the activities meeting of the Meriden Amateur Radio Club to order. We have a guest speaker aujourd'hui, who is Fred Kemmerer, AB1OC. Fred is an extra class radio amateur. He's an electrical engineer and has held positions as technology and business executive in the telecommunications industry. His interests include station building, space communications, and he has a widely followed blog. He's president of the Nashua Area Radio Society for the past 5 years, a club that has over 400 members. So if you think we're growing, we got a way to go yet, you know. He's guided the club to the Club of the Year award at the 2019 Dayton Hamvention. We were voted the most successful club in Meriden, by the way, by me. Yes. The club's success has been built in large part We're focusing on mentoring. We've seen his articles in QST. I think Bart and I discussed the use of his ham kit to get new VEs, you know, into the club, into clubs, and to make them feel welcome. He's also been active in bringing amateur radio to people in schools. He's an ARIS mentor and runs the ground station. And he's incredibly active. I'm not sure if he hangs upside down in his closet from 2 to 3 in the morning to rejuvenate, but he seems to be constantly active and is one of the major, I don't know, how many hams have you gotten, have you hatched with your VE sessions? Over 400 or something?
Well, you will talk about it. For classes, we've licensed or upgraded. If I take those that have registered for our fall classes, the number's probably at about 375 or so.
So there you go. So if I got crayons and pencils and coloring books for you, let me tell you.
Hey, cool.
Anyway, it's a pleasure to have Fred here. Fred is also running for the district director of the Northeast of the ARL, and as are 2 other individuals, Fred, who we know, Hopfengarten and Tom Frenay, for purposes of equal time. But Fred is not going to talk about that tonight. He's going to talk about amateur radio, and with that, I'll turn it over to him.
Yep. And just so I don't surprise you, this talk is about all the different things that we've tried and been reasonably successful with to bring new people into amateur radio. If it's okay, I do have just a couple slides at the end that I'd like to share to give you an idea of what I'm trying to do as director. I probably won't need to spend more than about 5 minutes on that, if that's okay. All right, so let's get, and by the way, thank you very, very much for that excellent introduction. I should have written or taped that because it's probably what I should have more of in my bio. You really did a nice job for me there, Ed. So
I read it off your email, so you.
Yeah, I know. I kind of typed it up, but you really made it sound good, much better than it sounded to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's what you get for being in net control. You get verbal. So.
Okay. All right. So let's get into this and see what you all think. Can you see the can you all see the, hold on a second, I didn't do that correctly. You're not going to hear my audio. Let me do that again. Okay, here we go. Yep, I'll check the magic option to share my sound and we will be good to go. Can you all see the PowerPoints okay?
Yes.
All right.
Yep.
So what I'm going to try and share here is a whole range of projects that I've been involved in, mostly through the Nashua Area Radio Society and ARIS, 2 organizations that are both focused from different angles on young people and bringing new people into amateur radio. And what I'm hoping to do here, and I know you all are doing some great work. I spent some time on your website earlier today, and I can see your club's growing rapidly. So I think I think you call it a tech net or tech session that you all are doing, if I remember that correctly. That's a great example of the types of programs that I think are so vital for bringing new people in the hobby and helping people who are already licensed get on the air. So I applaud you for doing that kind of work. What I'm going to do to frame this is tell you the secret of making your club the largest club in New England. So I'm basically going to give away the Nashua Radio Society's special sauce here. It's very simple. Focus on bringing new people into amateur radio and particularly focus on mentoring. And you will find that your club grows almost faster than you can handle. My club, say 7 years ago, 6.5 years ago, when we started on this journey, had 30 people that were on our roster. Maybe half of them were still paying dues. And if we got more than 10 people at anything, it was a big deal. Okay. We decided at about that time to start focusing on new people. The first thing we did was we started actually teaching license classes to help people, basically study for it, learn, and get licensed. And then we followed that up with a whole bunch of programs that were designed to get those people active and on the air. A little later on, we also started to do a lot of work in schools, and I'm going to share all of this stuff with you. The first year after we took that journey, we hit 100 members. And as I sit here today, I think we're at around 437. we have 1 to 2 new people sign up every week without any active recruiting other than, you know, the work we do. Okay. And one of the things we learned partway through this now, when we keep pretty good data on the people we license. Our classes are 2 solid days for tech in general, 3 full days for extra. We teach tech general and extra classes every spring and every fall. And then we usually teach a special section, a tech class somewhere in between or 2 for school students, for high school and middle school kids. Okay. And we keep pretty good track of what happens to the people that go through our classes. What we found is that only about 25% of the people we licensed were active and on the air after a year. And we thought, man, with all the stuff we do, that's pretty bad. And so I started talking to people at the league. I spent some time with Gordon West, who many of you know probably is pretty heavily involved in licensing as well. And those folks were giving me numbers that they thought it was only 15%. So we decided to do something about that. And we created a program called Ham Boot Camp, which you probably read about in QST. Some of you may have been to Ham Boot Camp. And what I wanted to do to kind of bring this home for you all is share some data from the last Ham Boot Camp that we did. Now, the last one we did, we had 480 people register. And it was a pretty broad cross section. I think we had hams from 30 states. We had hams from Alaska and Hawaii. We even had people in Canada, the United Kingdom, and South Africa attend this. And what I'm showing you here on the chart is the breakdown of the license classes of the people who registered for boot camp. Okay. Now, this is a really basic program. It's like, you know, how do I pick an HT and a decent antenna? How do I program it? How do I make a QSO on a repeater for the first time? How do I put together I'll put up a wire antenna and a basic HF station? How do I use it? This is all pretty basic stuff. What does it tell us when over 60% of the people who registered for a program like that had a general class, advanced class, or extra class license? What that told us is there is a tremendous demand and need for mentoring in amateur radio. And when you couple that with the fact that, you know, maybe only a quarter of the people that got a license to begin with ever stay active, and you think about the number of potential hams that might participate with your group, if you do a good job with this kind of outreach and mentoring, you can kind of understand, you know, that there's a tremendous need there that you can fill and at least understand where all the growth in our club came from. It's pretty obvious. Right? So let's talk. What I want to do for the rest of the night here is talk about some of the programs we've done, how we came to them, how they work. And what I'd say is there is no silver bullet in doing this stuff, except that a group like yours needs to pick things that you're passionate about, that you enjoy doing, and you need to build mentoring programs around those. Okay, and every club, every group has different membership interests and different things that they enjoy. Your club's pretty big and you've already got a pretty broad range of interests, at least I can tell that from your website. And so you have lots of opportunities to create your own set of successful mentoring programs. But what I also want to do is share a little bit of how we kind of came to the ones we did and how we found kind of answers to some of the tougher problems like work in schools and other things. So one of the first things that we did is, you know, we were licensing a lot of people. At the time that we got through that first year, I would say that 70 plus, maybe 80% of our club was licensed less than a year. Imagine that problem. Okay. So, and we had a lot of people looking to do things for the first time. We also had a base of members who'd been with the club a long time that wanted to learn new things. So how do you serve that? Well, what we did is we created a second meeting every month. We call it Tech Night. It's probably similar to your TechNet program, where we go and take a certain topic and we bring 1 or 2 people in from our club and we do a kind of hands-on oriented presentation of how to do something in amateur radio. The way we came up with that list is we brainstormed up from what everybody in the club contributed as to good ideas. And then we did a poll, we did a survey, and we let the club members prioritize things. And then we simply work through things in priority order. Okay. And what you're seeing in the lower right there is one of our tech nights. Here we have a member who went to Home Depot in the plumbing department, bought all the PVC stuff to make a 2-meter Yagi, a 3-element Yagi that he could put together 1 element at a time. He built a little dipole with a light bulb on it so you could see the energy and the pattern around the antenna. And then he did a demonstration to explain how a Yagi worked and put the Yagi together one element at a time and let people see the pattern being formed. So that's an example of the kinds of stuff we do at Tech Night. Widely popular program. We record all of these. And I think right now we have over 125 hours of pretty high quality video training on just about anything you can imagine in amateur radio. Everything from, how to pick an HT and put together a basic station for repeaters, all the way up to topics like surface mount soldering, EME, satellite stations, pretty VHF weak signal work, some pretty advanced things.
Fred, I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Are you meaning to share your presenter view on the screen? Because we're seeing the next cue that you have up and all of your slides across the bottom.
All right, I didn't mean to do that, so let me try and see if I can't fix that. I think this will probably do it.
Thanks, Ant.
Is that better?
Oh yeah, there you go.
Sorry about that. All right, great. So at any rate, I think you already have a program like this, it looks like, going. And I think for us, it was our first big win in terms of mentoring. So I'd encourage you to keep that up if you can find a way. And I see you're also videoing some of the stuff. I watched one that someone did on WSJTX and FT8 today. I thought it was very well done. These are great things to provide as a resource for people who are trying to get on the air all the way through, learn new stuff that they don't know about. Okay. So let me say a little bit more about boot camp. This is a very basic kind of how to do stuff for the first time program. As I said earlier, we designed it to attack the problem of hams getting licensed and not doing anything with their licenses. And when we created this, we spent a lot of time talking to our licensed class grads and doing surveys to try to understand what the blockers were. What happened that with someone who was motivated enough to study for and earn a tech and then never use it? What was going on there? Okay. And what it all came down to was that they didn't feel confident that they could build an amateur radio station and use it properly on the air. That was the kind of gist of it. So how do we tackle that? Well, for the techs on the left there, you see an example. This was an in-person boot camp at Boxborough, Hamfest in 2019. And what we're doing here is everybody has an HT. We're on a 70 centimeter simplex channel at low power, and we're practicing making the first QSO with each other with a coach in the room. We simulate, two people coming in through a repeater on a simplex channel. We simulate a three-way conversation where somebody breaks in and goes round robin. And then we also simulate a net where people check in, and we kind of do not a conventional net, but we get everybody checked in the usual way. And then the net control, who's the gentleman standing in the left there with standing up, basically asks a question. Everybody takes a turn answering it with each other. And then we kind of talk about where people had problems or if they were uncomfortable. So we do a couple things. We break through mic fright here a little bit and how to use the radio. We break through the protocol of actually using a repeater. We then follow on with sessions on how do you program your radio? How do you pick a decent antenna? We talk about how to put a radio in a car properly. All the kinds of things that a brand new ham with a tech license would want to do as part of becoming active. The second half of those sessions are about doing similar stuff on the HF bands. And you can see on the right there, one of our instructors is explaining how to put together a basic 100-watt radio station. He's got a computer for logging. He's got a key headset on there. You can't see it, but on the left, he actually has a buddy pole set up in the room, and he's actually using it, although not very well inside the hotel room, to actually make QSOs. So we kind of go through that whole process. We talk about QSLing and finding DX and all that kind of thing. So pretty basic stuff. Now, this is the actual agenda for one of our full one-day boot camps, and you can kind of see what we cover. Including stuff like how do you go about learning CW, how do you do FT8. For the things involving contacts, we'll actually bring an HF radio when we do these on Zoom onto the band, and we'll have a QSO. I remember we had one with a gentleman on Gozo Island in the Mediterranean where we had him talk about his station and how he got ham radio, real live DX contact, and let the folks that are participating in this listen in. Same sort of thing with the repeater stuff. We, 2 or 3 of us get on a local repeater. We bridge that repeater on and we do the same kind of demonstration I explained. Now, this program took us a while to develop, but even if you only picked 1 or 2 areas out of something like this, maybe, how to get an HT together and get it programmed, or, how to put up a 20-meter dipole, and you did a topic like that for folks, publicize it well, I think you would find that you would get an amazingly good response of people that are out there wanting to know how to do these things, but need a little bit of help to figure it out. And if you can manage to do one live at somebody's station, like put a 20-meter dipole up and actually have the people participate, it's even better. It's even better. All right. So some of you might look at this and say, well, some of these things are pretty big programs, or, you're already doing your tech net. Is there something simpler that we can do that's meaningful? So I wanted to share a couple things like that we've done. One of the best activities was suggested by one of our members, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I think. It looks like it would have been back in 2016, so maybe it's about 5 years ago, I guess. He suggested that, hey, we have some members, including my wife and I, who have pretty decent stations for contesting, and we know you guys are in contesting. Why don't you stand down in a major contest, invite all of the new people that have recently gotten general or maybe extra class lights into your station, and let them use it to work a DXCC for your club. So we did that. My station is a multi-2 transmitter deal. And we picked what arguably is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, DX contest in the world, CQ Worldwide DX. And we basically did a coaching session before the contest started, got people comfortable with the station and using it, because, a contest station can be a little bit intimidating sometimes, especially a multi-op one. And then we coach people and let them make contacts. The gang worked, I think, over 120 DXCCs in the contest, earned a DXCC. And the next time we did a tech night on how to put an HF station together, it was a mob scene, because all the folks that had participated in this really had the bug to get an HF station of their own, because they actually had a lot of fun with it. It was also pretty cool. Every time somebody would work a new DXCC, the loggers tell you that, obviously, right? They would kind of go over to the maps in the shack and look where it was, and, kind of cheer each other on. And also, it was also a great sort of group activity that I think everybody enjoyed a lot. Other things you can do, if you do special event operations, bring in the new hams and let them work with you. I'm the state manager for 13 colonies for New Hampshire, K2K. And I always spend some time during the week that I'm operating that event and have someone new log for me. If they get comfortable, they get pretty good at hearing call signs and they want to take a turn at the pileup, I'll log for them and use, some of the activities that you could be involved in on the air as training exercises. And, I made a lot of contacts, a lot of them through 13 colonies, quite a few through contesting and just rag chewing and operating. I think I've got like 102,000 contacts in my log. And I can tell you that without a doubt that when I sit with a new person and watch them make their first DX contacts or help them with an event like this, it's like when I did it the first time too. And so what you'll find, I think, if you try some of these things, is you'll get a tremendous sense of satisfaction around helping other people, maybe more so than, the next 100 QSOs or next 1,000 QSOs that you might make by yourself. Field day is a wonderful opportunity for new hams. We adopted this philosophy when we kind of started this process to reinvent ourselves as a club focused on mentoring. The way we do field days, we encourage all of the new folks to come out and help set the field day station up. And then we give those people the right of first refusal on any operating slot that they want. Now, we do set some rules so that everybody gets a turn. But if you're a new ham and you come out and help set up, you can have your first slot at 20-meter sideband at 3 o'clock on Saturday afternoon, even though you have almost no experience doing that. And one of the more experienced people will sit there with you and help you be successful. Okay. Now you might say, well, gee, doesn't that really hurt your field day score? Well, we've done some pretty big field days. We typically put up at least a tower or two. The field day you're seeing here was a 4-tower 11 alpha deal that we were QRV on 160 through 1.2 gig in all modes. So these are not simple field days. And it does put some stress on our more experienced people to coach all these folks to set the station up and to help them operate. But we've groomed some great sideband operators from doing this. Abby, the girl who on the lower left picture there, who's operating with her brother, is a great example of this. I remember Abby, by the way, earned her extra on her 13th birthday. She's a very committed young ham. And I remember her first field day. We got the first tower up on a Friday night, and Abby and a station up to test it. And Abby came up to me and said, "Can I operate a little bit? I've never had a chance to use a Yagi before." So she got on Friday night and about 7 o'clock, and she went till about 1 in the morning. And on Saturday, she started operating at 2 o'clock, and she never stopped till 2 o'clock Sunday. She went through the whole 24-hour period. And I remember this well. I came into the 75-meter sideband tent on Sunday morning at about 8:30. And Abby's operating 75 sideband. Of course, it's pretty dead by then. She looks up at me and kind of growled at me and said, "I worked everybody on this band. I need a new one." This is the kind of behavior you want from your new operators, believe me. Abby, in our last field day, was the top operator in the whole event. She had a better rate, more QSOs than anybody else on any mode. Okay. And so the benefit you gain by making your new hams and young people the stars of your field day is they will become, in relatively short order, at least the ones that are dedicated, some of the very best operators you have. The other big benefit of this, and many folks I know do their field days in public places, is that you make amateur radio shine for what it is, which is a learning opportunity of a lifetime for amateur radio in front of the public. And that can have a tremendous impact. I have for that 11 Alpha field day that I mentioned earlier, we had a camera crew come out from WMUR, which is kind of the regional TV station here in New Hampshire. And I believe they may cover Massachusetts some as well. And what I want you to pay attention to here is how the reporters that are doing this spot on the 5 o'clock news of the Sunday of field day portrayed amateur radio to probably tens, maybe 100,000 people in the general public. So here we go.
While practicing for a possible emergency.
Next at 6, how these amateur radio operators are getting ready for any disaster.
Amateur radio operators across the country and Canada set up radio equipment this weekend for an event called Field Day.
And while it is a contest, it's also a chance for operators to practice their emergency response capabilities so they're ready to provide communications if a disaster strikes. Dozens took part at Hudson Memorial School, working completely off the grid, simulating a real emergency.
What we've taught some of the kids in the school here about is how you actually track and talk and do communications through a satellite in space.
One of the main things we like to do is really further the education of STEM curriculum in local schools. This has been a partnership with the Hudson Middle School.
Tango, Radio Tango.
Trained some as young as 12 years old. That is incredible. Good for them.
And they actually started setting up yesterday. They went 24 hours. So in that kind of unsettled weather that we had, they were still going. So pretty impressive.
Good for them. That's
Might be a little wet down there right now with some shower.
So think about this. In addition to providing an excellent opportunity for a lot of new hams to get involved and really have fun with amateur radio, really, as I like to say, get the bug. Imagine what we did for public opinion and positive support for amateur radio, and what that can mean about in terms of things like actually getting HOA antenna restriction legislation that protects us actually passed, or maybe having the public motivate the FCC through Congress and others to support us keeping our spectrum. Building public support by focusing on new people, and particularly young people, I'll have more on that in a minute, is really, really important if we're going to protect our hobby and grow it and protect our rights to use our radios and our spectrum the way we like to use it. So let me stop here. This is probably one of those first breaking points. Any questions or thoughts about this part so far? It's kind of pretty geared towards just new hams, or maybe hams who, want to expand their amateur radio experience. And what some of the things are that you can benefit your club and also amateur radio as a whole by focusing on mentoring. So any thoughts or comments on any of this stuff or questions?
So Fred, I've got one question from the chat from Jim WA1ZVY. Have you brought in a group of Boy Scouts or scouting looking to get their radio merit badge? Or do you have any outreach towards scouting groups?
Yep, that's a good one. I'm actually going to talk a little bit about that in the second half of my talk, but there's a program called Jamboree on the Air that we've done with some scout troops. I'm also a merit badge counselor for electronics and the radio merit badge. And I've helped some kids in schools, particularly that have been in scouts, go through the process and get those merit badges. So yes, absolutely. And as we talk about kind of the second part of this, which is focusing on young people, I think scouts are an excellent path to go down for this stuff. The thing you have to realize, I was an Eagle Scout with, I think, a gold palm. The process for merit badges is very different now than it was back when probably some of you all were scouts. Back then, you did your thing, you found a merit badge counselor, maybe you spent an evening at that person's house. They showed you some of what they did. I remember when I got my radio merit badge, I went to a ham and he actually put me on the air for the first time when I was working on that one. But these days, because of all the concerns about safety for young people, it's a lot different. And merit badges tend to be taught in the context of a group in, a scout troop or an activity. So the experience I had was we did a JOTA, we helped the scout troop put up a station and be on the air. And then during that event, we basically taught a merit badge class for the radio merit badge, and a bunch of the scouts got their badge. So just be aware if you go down that second path that you're going to have to adapt to, the current environment, but it's still there and it's still just as vibrant as it always was, I think.
I have another question actually from myself.
Yeah.
How can you revitalize existing members to continue to contribute towards club growth? We've made advantage or taken advantage of Kids Day opportunities and tried to expand on that to the town. Town's been very supportive and supporting to our efforts that way. But sometimes it's a challenge to keep members interested in the program.
Yeah, no, I get it. We had the same problems early on when we started out with this journey as well. So let me tell you what happened for us. None of the programs I'm talking about here, with the exception of maybe the ISS contact, had more than 3 members or 4 members to start them. And in fact, we kind of pride ourselves, because a lot of these kinds of programs, it's not obvious how to do them right when you first begin. So you're probably going to fail a few times or get it partially right as you learn what the people who want to participate in these things really need from you. We actually have a name for that in our group. We call it failing fast. We don't let ourselves get so bogged down in designing anything that when it doesn't work perfectly, we can't get away from it. And we always spend time asking people how it went and what we could have done better that we serve. Now, to the specifics of your club, what I would say is if you have something that a few of you are passionate about, maybe you have a group that's really into space communications or space stuff, or maybe you have a group that's really into Morse code or some other activity. Go out and start something. Keep it small. Make sure you spend a lot of time talking to the people that were part of your program. Sometimes it's only going to be a handful. The first time we did something, we only had 3 or 4 people show up. But we always took the time to understand what worked and what didn't, and we kept going, okay? As the programs become successful and become kind of an integral part of what your club is, and you start drawing new people, folks see new hams, maybe young hams showing up at your club meetings, I think you're going to find that a lot of those members who might otherwise be a little skeptical are going to want to come along and join the fun. That's what happened with us. Success breeds success. And I think, many folks that have been in the hobby for a while look at some of these problems and say, new hams, they're more interested in their cell phones. The kids in school are busy with other stuff. I'm not going to throw a lot of energy into this because I'm not sure how it's going to work out. So the thing you want to do, I think, is just find a few people who want to be on the bleeding edge, get something started, stay at it and build momentum. And then when you start to see the new people showing up at your club meetings, I think you're going to find that some of those folks who might otherwise be skeptical will say, hey, this is pretty cool. We're doing this. Nobody else around us is. I might want to be a part of this, or I might want to contribute. The other thing, quite frankly, I'll tell you, is being president of this club, you need to ask people, and you need to buy a lot of breakfast, lunches, and dinners. I spend a lot of time with my members, once we get a program that's rolling where we really need the help to kind of scale it up, is spending a lot of time, with the members who I know that are interested in the thing that we're doing, trying to encourage them to join in. And, a great example, we're going to be doing a fairly large display at Ham Exposition at Marlborough. And my wife Anita's on the phone coordinating about 25 people in our club who are getting ready to support that activity. And only thing they're going to get out of that is we're going to be introducing a lot of folks to a bunch of new things in amateur radio that they probably are interested in. So once you get momentum in your programs, it gets easier, I guess is what I would tell you.
Thank you.
Yep. Anybody else before we move on? Okay. All right. So let's go shift more to the side of younger folks. And, in amateur radio, we could safely get away to say that you're young in amateur radio if you're under 40. So I bring that up for a significant reason, because some of what you need to do to attract people who are in junior high school, and in college are the same things you need to do to attract working parents and families who have very tough time constraints, probably limited resource constraints, and have a million things pulling on them. Okay. And I'm going to go through some programs that we've done, particularly aimed at young people, that we've gotten some great results. So some of these things are also aimed at newer hams. What I would tell you is it's important to deliver your programs in hands-on ways and in time-limited chunks. For the new ham that's just looking at amateur radio for the first time, you never want to tie them up for more than a day without having some fun. Okay. That's really the key to this. Because, if you look at this from the standpoint of a young person, say in high school or in junior high, and their parents, by the way, which you can sometimes attract the whole family pretty well. They've got a million things on their plate. The parents probably work. There's probably limited financial resources in play in most cases. Okay. And so you need to deliver the amateur radio experiences, at least the early ones, in time limited, fun oriented chunks to get them interested. Now, once you get them interested, you'll meet the kinds of people that you saw at our field day. But how you play that early part is really important. Now, you all mentioned Kids Day. That's a great activity that you can do. It happens 2 times a year. It's basically, for those of you who don't know what Kids Day is, it's about an event where young people get on the air and they basically make contacts, a lot like Jamboree on the Air for the Scouts. It's a mostly HF oriented event. 80% of it usually takes place on 20 meters on sideband. And it's a lot of fun. You can really kind of make a really good experience by wrapping some other activities around. For example, when we do these, we usually hire a radio transmitter and let the kids hunt it. That's nice because they don't need a license to do that. I have satellite equipment here. That's kind of a really high-tech thing that involving space that you can do with amateur radio. We always play with Morse code and kind of do some activities where kids send their names or some simple stuff to each other. And I'll have more to say on Morse code, but actually, particularly with middle school and early high school kids, Morse code is a great opportunity to draw them into amateur radio. And then there's also a series of beginner contests that the ARL sponsors, called the ARL Rookie Roundup. And these are great activities for a group of either new hams or young people or both. There's a sideband, a digital, and a CW version of this contest. It's all made for people who either are working with a control operator or a license less than 3 years. And my favorite one of these is actually the CW one. Now, you might say, how do you take a group of kids or new hams that have licensed less than 3 years and enter a CW contest? Most of them don't know it. Well, I'll tell you how we do it. The week before, we'll spend a couple hours in training to just introduce people to Morse code. Give them a code chart. Let them understand the structure of a QSO, how you call CQ, how you start a QSO, how you give a signal report, all the basics. And then we sit them down in the shack and we put the audio up really high and we let them all sit around and work together to do search and pounce. And so we get a station on the air that we can hear. We let them listen till they figure out the call sign. And sometimes it takes a while, especially in the beginning, but usually with the code charts and listening And again, remember, this is a beginner CW contest, so there aren't exactly anybody ripping along at 30 words a minute in here. It's pretty slow. They'll get the call sign. You know, we have a computer set up to do the keying. One of them will go ahead and respond and complete the QSO, and they'll log it. So it's not exactly a hard-hitting CW contest, but every one of those participants go away with having made CW QSOs by ear and getting a feel for what engaging in CW communications is really like. And it's a blast. It's fun to sit there and watch them all figure it out. And when they get the call sign, you know, kind of say, yeah, you guys got it right. Go ahead and complete it. It's a real blast. And I have a little video clip here I'll play of Abby working the Rookie Roundup sideband, just for those of you who haven't been involved in one of these, so you get some sense of what it's like. Abby's dad is logging for her, and Abby's actually getting the call signs better, and dad's slowing her down because he's not getting them in the log right. So I think you'll enjoy this. It's kind of fun to see a young operator begin to build sideband skills. So here we go.
QRZ, November 1, Foxtrot Delta. Could the Kilo Echo 0 station come again? Foxtrot Mexico. QSL Kilo Echo 0 Foxtrot Mexico X-ray. This is November 1 Foxtrot Delta. My name is Abby, Alpha Bravo Bravo Yankee, 1-6 November Hotel. Could I get your name, year licensed, and state, please?
Now, again, when you participate with a new ham or a young person to do something like this the first time, for me, it's like I'm doing it for the first time again. It really is very, very special. Interestingly enough, I think I have it here, actually. The group of people that were in that contest with Abby were #1 in Area 1 in this particular contest. So they all got a nice certificate out of the deal as well, which is important. All right. A lot of schools focus on something called STEM learning. STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. It's a kind of a core of the sciences and math curriculum that we seem to be struggling with in the American education system in a big way. And what we found is that amateur radio can be a perfect tool in providing real world applications for STEM learning that many schools, including public schools, are so desperately struggling with. So what I'm going to share next is a whole bunch of different programs that we've done that have been pretty successful. And what I would tell you is that getting a solid program going in schools is a commitment that won't happen with 1 or 2 tries. It's something that you need to work at over the period of, let's say, 12 to 18 months and form a relationship with a school. But once you do that, your only constraint will be your ability to put the time in to do it. We are involved in, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 schools locally here where we're actually involved in teaching, or have been involved in teaching, amateur radio for credit as part of the school curriculum. And what I'm going to kind of walk you through is how we got there, and kind of what it means when you do that. So almost all schools, especially middle schools, have after school activities that are kind of STEM, science, technology, engineering, math oriented. A common one is something called Pi Night, you know, pi for like the mathematical symbol pi. And what these things are they're technically kind of oriented, almost like science fairs that a school will hold in maybe their auditorium or their cafeteria one evening. And the teachers will bring in displays. Outside groups are often invited in to bring displays. When we go to a Pi Night, we bring a trifold that talks about all the stuff you can do in amateur radio. We bring Morse code practice keyers, code charts, and code activities, because we know these kids love to play with Morse code. We bring in electronics, things that we built. And if the school has internet, we'll bring in a remote HF station where the kids can actually use a HF station and talk to people on the air. We'll often also take a hidden radio transmitter, a Fox, if you will, and hide it on the other end of the cafeteria or the auditorium, let the kids chase it around with their HTs and see if they can find it. And then we provide, kind of a little bit of instructional how to do the things you do in amateur radio and work with the kids. that is a wonderful opportunity to start a program in a school, because not only are you going to be exposed to teachers and administrators, you're also going to be exposed to the kids' parents. And when the parents see what amateur radio can bring in terms of a learning experience for their kids, and if it's couched well that way, the parents actually tend to get on board faster than the kids do. And that's really, really important. We did this in a couple schools, and they invited us back next. One school, actually both schools did, to be part of their after school clubs. Most schools have a club time once a week where you could be maybe an electronics club. Some schools actually have STEM clubs. Next thing, we got invited in there, and we basically did kit builds. We got some of these little 40-meter CW Pixie kits. We had the kids team up. We taught them how to solder, and we let them build them. You can see two of the kids at one local high school down there in the lower part building their 40-meter Pixie kit. Pretty cheap. Those kits cost less than $10 the last time we bought them. And they're not exactly the kind of 40-meter CW transmitter that an accomplished ham would own, but it's a great experience to build something like that. And then what we do is we spend a little bit of time and teach the kids enough Morse code and how a QSO works that they could conduct a contact with a chart in front of them. And then we run a competition. By the time we got to the competition, one local high school got the kids out of class for the better part of a whole day so they could compete with their Morse code kits. And the other end of the thing they had was a buddy pole and a KX3 at the other end of the classroom. So we gave them a decent receiver. We acted as the control operator because most of them weren't licensed. And we kind of did a Jay Leno style Morse code deal where we gave, I don't know if you all ever saw the thing where Jay Leno had a pair of Morse code operators and a pair of text message people. And they competed to, sorry about that. My computer got a little flaky there. They competed to see who could send the phrase the fastest. Well, ours is all Morse code, and the kids all get different phrases, but we ran it the similar way. And in one school, the girl in the lower left there holding the soldering iron won, and she had copied the phrase at about 12 words a minute. So we're looking at this and said, either we are the best CW instructors in the world, or there's something going on here, because we only spent a couple hours teaching these kids Morse code. Well, it turns out that her and her friend, when they were bored in class for the last year, were tapping out Morse code with their pencils to make comments about their friends and their teachers. So they were ringers. But what this showed us is that kids in this age range from grade 6 through 12 actually have a lot of interest in playing with Morse code. They kind of think it's like learning a language or a secret code. And we had so much interest in that we actually created a kit, which I'll show you in a minute, that we use in these schools now to help them develop their skills. That led us to working with the teachers that we were now regularly engaged with to create a real STEM learning project around amateur radio, which involved teaching about all of the physics and dynamics of flying a high altitude weather balloon that carried an amateur radio APRS telemetry system. The kids learn about gravity, atmospheric conditions, the jet stream, parachute dynamics. They even learn how to file a flight plan for their balloon. They go use simulators and calculators to engineer the flight and predict where it goes. They go out, launch their balloon and fly it. And then they recover the balloon, look at all the telemetry against what they predicted, and try to explain what went differently than they thought it would. So, and at least 2 schools gave us bona fide classroom time. One school, a local middle school here, gives us 10 2-hour sessions out of their class time, where 1 hour is the teachers teaching the STEM material that we've created with us in the room. And the other hour is we do an amateur radio activity like a fox hunt. We put up a portable station. We play with Morse code. So they're actually having their kids do amateur radio activities in classroom time. Okay. So again, if you build a relationship with a school and kind of stay at it, and if you focus the amateur radio as a supplement to what they're already trying to teach as part of their STEM curriculum, that's how you can work your way into a school to the point where you're actually the teacher. And we've had that experience now in 3 separate schools, so it's not a fluke. Okay. I thought just for fun, I'd share a little bit of a video of one of these high altitude balloon flights. So you'll be able to see the kids preparing to launch their balloon. And then I have a video here from the cameras on the balloon where you can see it fly. And also you'll notice that the information about the altitude, temperature, pressure, all that is coming from the APRS amateur radio stuff. that their kids are flying on the balloon. That's how they know it. So let's see what a high altitude balloon experience for a school is like. There's the 2-meter transmitter. Now these things basically go up to their maximum altitude. The balloon expands in what is almost a zero pressure environment and it explodes. And then the thing basically comes back to the ground on a parachute. That's how it works.
Send them again so that they go on and on and on in all directions.
There we are.
Balloon, N1FD-11. See it there? So we know that transmitter is
Abby and Aya, who's the girl that just let go of the balloon on the right, have been involved in these projects enough that they've actually become some of the teachers that come out and help the other students figure out how to do these projects. I'll have a little more to say about the kids teaching the kids in a minute, but that's really important.
Go, Brian. Go, Brian.
The balloon carries two GoPro cameras, one obviously looking out so the kids can see what it looks like basically as you go through the upper layers of the atmosphere. And the one looking up is important because it allows them to see the balloon expand as the pressure drops and what happens when it bursts. So the upper right shot, the balloon you're seeing is actually on about a 40-foot flight line, and it's about 6 to 7 feet in diameter when they launch. Let's skip ahead here and see what this experience is like here. Let's see where we're at. There's 60,000. And you can see we get temperature and pressure as well as altitude. All the data is known because of the APRS telemetry that the balloon is sending to the ground over 2-meter APRS. And we also teach the kids how the radio piece works and how the APRS system works. So that's all part of the curriculum. So as you can see, what we're doing is we're tying amateur radio into a very high-tech experience that pretty much every student and teacher that I've been involved with really enjoys being part of. All right, here we're looking up at the balloon. It's about to burst. Now, by the way, that thing you see flying around is the 2-meter transmitter. There's a lot of energy in that balloon. At burst, it was over 30 feet in diameter. It would barely fit in a room. And so all that energy is kind of released when it explodes. One of the cool things we do with STEM learning in the amateur radio telemetry is the balloon here after burst is almost in a vacuum. And you can actually measure fairly accurately the acceleration due to gravity in a vacuum, which of course is something that most school kids learn about as part of their science curriculum. And so this is one of the examples of how we tie the amateur radio portion and the project into what teachers are trying to teach the kids, where they could go out, and now the thing that would otherwise have been a formula that had gotten tested on in science class now becomes something they're really using and can measure. And I got to tell you that the teachers, principals, and so on really love the fact that this experience augments what they're already trying to teach the kids. And that's what you got to focus on finding if you want to get traction in a school. So moving ahead here, you can see some of the telemetry. This, by the way, the parachute's open here. We're probably at about 40,000 feet or so. We're on our way down. This is some of the telemetry data that the kids get on amateur radio. The balloon bursts this stuff out every minute and uses APRS ground stations that are all over New England, basically, to consolidate the data. All the kids really need to track this thing is a cell phone or a web browser, because it goes basically to a common website called APRS FI. So it's a pretty easy project to do, okay? So that's kind of an example of the point that you could sort of get to. Just a word on Morse code. Here's that kit I told you all about that we work with Steve Elliott K1EL to develop. It's a very inexpensive, about a $20, $30 Morse code touch keyer that we can build in schools. We build over 100 of these kits in different schools, again, with kids teaming up to work on them together. We teach them how to solder. We give them safety goggles. You can see or make sure they have eye protection. And we let them build their kit and then use it. Also note, here's Aya again from the high school, and she's actually now with us in a different school. We got her out of class to do this, to teach other kids how to do this. And again, as you build a base of presence in one school, you will find that you'll likely have a few students, usually some of the best ones, that will become part of the process and help you. And when you start to do that, you really begin to gain a lot of traction, because kids teaching kids is much easier than adults teaching kids. So the other thing, I'll tell you a little story about Aya. She's a very unusual young lady. She just graduated from a local high school here. She's going off to Penn to college, which is a very difficult school to get into. And I got a nice note from Aya at the end of the spring term this year that said, you know, I got into Penn. Thank you very much. I just wanted to let you know that when I sat down with my recruiter for my final interview to get in, the first thing that she asked me about is, tell me about this amateur radio license on your resume. We don't see that very much. How hard was that to get? And of course, that made a big impression on the value of amateur radio in Aya's life, because it helped open a door. And she also went back and pretty much told everybody in her school that would listen to her what had happened. And so when you invest in work with young people like this, you're actually not only helping a young person get a great start in life, but you're also evangelizing amateur radio to teachers, parents, and other kids that, even though they may not become licensed, they may pursue careers and so on that lead them into electronics or science or math. And you may find that they'll pick the hobby up later on in life, even if they don't pick it up in school. So the last thing that I have here is kind of what I think is probably one of the ultimate, if not the ultimate, things you can do in a school. And that's to help a school make a contact with amateur radio with an astronaut on the space station. I've done this in about 10 schools now in different capacities. 2 where we were the partner amateur radio club, helping the school with the radio equipment to do this. I've since joined a program called ARIS, which basically schedules these contacts, picks schools to do them, provides ground station equipment for schools that don't have a ham group that can do it, and helps make the contacts happen. I'm also a ground station in the ARIS program, where I'm actually a shared radio resource that schools use to talk to the space station. These projects take about a year to do, maybe a little more than that. And for a school to get accepted, they have to have a curriculum that features space and amateur radio that they're committing to teach in the school. So and they also have to have a partner amateur radio club to get the contact. So if you join a school to do one of these things, you almost automatically have an opportunity to spend time teaching and helping the kids in school with an introduction to amateur radio. These events draw a tremendous number of people. You can see in the upper left, the first one that we did at a local middle school. I don't know the exact count, but there were hundreds of people in that room. Almost the whole school board was present. Almost all the teachers were present. I think the superintendent of schools was even there, as were most of the parents of the kids. You can see those are almost all adults. Okay. And one of the things I want to leave you with is imagine what doing a project like this does for support for amateur radio in your community. You know, if I had to go, this one was done in Hudson, New Hampshire. If I had to go and put pressure on the town council or maybe even the state to pass HOA legislation for amateur radio, imagine how many of those parents I could get to write a letter or call their congressperson or their boards people and ask that they support it. This is the kind of investment that we need to make to build public support for amateur radio. If we're ever going to get bills passed, we're going to protect our spectrum and protect our rights as amateurs. You know, we got a lot of folks that are writing bills and doing stuff, and my hat's off to them for trying, but not a heck of a lot of stuff is getting passed and getting into law. And what is getting into law is often so watered down as to not really be much of a help for us. And so when you spend time and invest in schools, not only do you bring young people to amateur radio, you probably change some of their lives for the better. But more importantly, you're building public support in a very meaningful way for amateur radio. So with that, I have a video here again, so we can have some fun with, of one of these contacts. It's very heavily edited. A typical contact involves 10 or 15 kids asking about 20 questions. It usually lasts about 10 to 15 minutes, depending on the nature of the ISS pass. But it'll give you a feel for this. And what I, again, want you to pay attention to, besides just the fun of the contact, is the impression that it's making on the general public and the teachers in the process. So here we go.
Hudson Memorial School, this is a very exciting and unique opportunity for us. Okay? This is a once-in-a-lifetime chance. Once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for the students of Hudson Memorial School.
By the way, every time I see Keith, the principal, he always asks me, what else can I do with his school? And actually, he sent his daughter through a license class. So it's really hard to explain the level of impact and support you can build by doing something like this.
To watch us make contact with astronauts from NASA in outer space on the International Space Station.
All right, as Mr. Bowen said, this is a truly unique event that you guys get to be a part of. And he did the welcomes to all the people that are here in the room. But I'm going to welcome all the elementary students that are probably watching us on live feed right now. The logo over to the far right is the Nashua Area Radio Society. They have been a huge part of this. Without them in this part, there would be no contact for you. The amount of hours, we probably can't even put together the amount of hours that the folks of this club put in to make sure that everything's happening. Also, they want to encourage and help people to become licensed and active in the amateur radio service. And you will see that over the course of the year, there are 2 students that are asking questions here that now have their amateur.
So on the topic of licensing young people, something we've done quite a lot of, Ryan there earned his general license at 12 years old. Kenzie earned her extra class license at the age of 10 years. So one of the other things that I truly believe and something I want to work on going forward is that if we create age-appropriate license training, it's actually fairly easy to license young people.
Radio license because of them.
1 minute to contact. The antennas are beginning to position. If you look at the video on the upper right of the screen, you can see the antennas tracking in on the ISS. November Alpha 1 Sierra Sierra, November Alpha 1 Sierra Sierra. This is November 1 Foxtrot Delta. Over. Hi, hello, Serena. This is November 1 Foxtrot Delta. We copy you fine. We've all been working very hard for about a year to prepare for this day, and we very much appreciate you taking the time to answer our questions. Are you ready for the students' questions? Over.
I am ready. Over. This is Ryan, KC1 KJS. What does it feel like when exiting the atmosphere? Over.
It's amazing. When our rocket lit and we knew those engines were going, we knew we were going somewhere really, really quickly, and it was the most amazing feeling to feel that thrust take that rocket off and last for about 8.5 minutes before we reached orbit. Over.
This is Kenzie, KE1NZY. How long have you been a licensed amateur radio operator, and do you use your license for any other communications besides ARIS? Over.
I've been a licensed radio operator now for probably only about 1.5 years in preparation for this space flight, and I've only had the chance to use it up here in the space station, and I've really enjoyed doing that, including just making random contacts across the United States and other countries. So I'm hoping to get to continue that after the mission. Over.
This is Abby. The students of Hudson Memorial School wish to thank you for talking with us today. Over.
Thank you, Hudson Memorial School in New Hampshire. It was fantastic talking with you. Have a great rest of your school year.
Thank you, Serena. N1FD clear.
So obviously an experience of a lifetime for everybody involved, including us. I don't think I've ever done anything in amateur radio that was more impactful or more enjoyable than this. Every time I watch this video, I still get chills. And obviously we made a big difference in a lot of lives here, including build a lot of good public support for the hobby. By the way, I am a mentor and now work with schools actually all over the place, but particularly in New England and radio clubs to do these contacts. So if you think your group might be interested in something like this, I'd be happy to, share more with the right people and maybe help you get started and find a school. So at any rate, you can have a huge positive impact on your club, on the hobby, and on the general public's perception of amateur radio if you focus on bringing new people into the hobby and developing all ham skills. And also the work in schools, as we've talked about, is really, really important. You asked about JOTA, and Boy Scouts in the lower right was one of those JOTA operations that we did. You can see we have some of the kids there that were running the radios, and two of us in our club, myself and another ham, and the Scoutmaster that made that event go. Those are great ways to introduce young people. And I would tell you that it's easy to find opportunities to do this as long as you pick something that you enjoy doing and you're passionate about. Don't wait for an army of supporters or lots of money. Pick something out that you can go try. You'll probably need a couple swings at the plate until you figure out that world-class program that you really want. Don't get discouraged if you don't find it on the first try. You probably won't. Listen to the people that you serve and follow their lead, and they will show you how to make amateur radio a meaningful part of the environment you're in and of people's lives. So with that, that's the second part of my presentation. Do y'all have any questions or comments or thoughts on any of this?
Fred, this is Rob, K1RCT. I have an observation and a question from the chat.
Okay.
My observation is our club, long about the time that I joined, which was back in 2012, had an ARIS contact that was fomented by who is now a silent key K1SEZ, Paul Ciesniak. He worked in the STEM with the STEM school here in Wallingford, and they made an ARIS contact as well. So we're not unfamiliar with that. That was a fantastic part of your presentation too. I enjoyed it. But I do have a question. This is from Eric Knight, KB1EHE. A question for you, Fred. Thank you for the wonderful program tonight and the great efforts you are making for ham radio community. You mentioned passion. I am passionate about not only expanding the number of hams, particularly young hams, but also expanding the hobby in ways that better reflect the population's proportion of women and ethnic minorities. What sort of outreach can we do? Thank you for your advice. 7-3 from Eric, KB1EHE.
So Eric, first of all, I hope that you'll find two other hams and start something in your club, because you're right at the heart of what we need. Now, here's what I would tell you. Take a look at the picture in the lower right. Those are the group of people, young people, who ask questions that contact. What do you see? You see a lot of young women. You see members of a lot of different ethnic groups. Okay. And this is kind of, to your point, Eric, what the modern sort of population looks like in this age range. You know, depending where you go, it'll look different. But young women, for example, when I go to a STEM club, there's like 6 girls and 1 young man in that environment typically. If you want, and I do believe that diversity is extremely important going forward, if for no other reason, that if we're going to become and evolve to be a modern hobby that appeals to the makeup of the public the way it really is today, we have to become more diverse. We don't look as a community like what that group of school kids does on average. We've made progress in the last few years for sure. But again, your work in schools and your outreach. By the way, another thing you can do, get someone who's active in your club, who's a YL or a minority, and put them on your board. Get them in a leadership role. There's tons of things that you can do to demonstrate that you're all in on you know, basically making the amateur radio community more balanced. And these things mean a lot. If you know, I'm working with a woman who just got involved in amateur radio. She's really enthusiastic. She's probably in her late 50s. And the fact that my wife's a ham and is working with her, we have a lot of YLs in our club, is one of the reasons she picked our club. And so again, this is a kind of, you know, focus on it. There's lots of opportunities in the mentoring programs we talked about, especially if you engage in schools, because you're not only going to get the kids involved, you're going to get some of the parents involved too if you do that.
Yeah.
Right. And so these are great places to start to build some diversity. And, you know, the other thing I would say is in terms of commitment among young people to STEM careers, science, engineering, technology, I think that the balance of the interest definitely tilts towards women, not men, going forward. So if you don't do that, you'll be partially tying one of your hands behind your back if you don't focus that way. It's just the reality of the way the world is. So I don't know, hopefully that answers your question, or at least gives you some idea.
That's fantastic. And it's, thank you so much for the wisdom, and I'm going to find a way to put that into action. Thank you so much for tonight and your advice. Thank you.
Remember, you only need 3 people. Don't get bogged down with more than that. Find 2 other people who will help you and go for it.
Will do.
All right. Other questions or comments on this? I just have a couple charts left and I know I'm about out of time. So
anybody else?
WA1FFT.
Go ahead, Ray.
Yes, my daughter just got promoted to a principal at a middle school. So it's not, and the school is one that has, let us say, quite a bit of money to spend on things. For instance, somebody found that they had a blue screen and she went to the see if they could get the money for that. And not only did they get the money, but they got a whole bunch of other stuff. So I'm thinking that I'll contact you. I see us setting up a ham radio station there and building something there. They have 1,200 kids at this middle school.
Oh man, that sounds like a wonderful opportunity. You got it in with your daughter being an administrator. Remember to start.
She's the principal.
Yep.
Brand new principal, and their first day will be Monday.
Oh man, that's great. Boy, you couldn't ask for any more than that. The one thing I would say to you is start small and demonstrate and learn how to be part of the education solution at that school. That's going to be your key to getting to some of the more advanced projects. Getting the teachers licensed, which you're going to need if you're going to put an amateur radio station in the school, because the teachers are going to need to run that for you probably. And you know, don't feel like you necessarily have to hit the first swing at the bat out of the park. Pick a small project, STEM club, Pie Night, a project in the school or something, and get yourself started. Use those to learn what works best for that school. Build your program. and have a long-term relationship with the school. And eventually, you know, the only constraint I have in a couple of schools I'm in is I could probably get more class time to teach about amateur radio as part for credit in schools if I just had more people who had time during the day to be in the school and teach.
I'm thinking with 1,200 kids, there may be a ham radio license in there or two.
Yep.
So, yeah, thank you very much.
I'm happy to help you. I'm happy to help you with that, by the way. Reach out.
I'll be in contact with you in a few days. I'll talk to my daughter first and we'll come up with some ideas. Thank you very much.
Okay,
Out here.
great. All right, maybe one more question, and I want to share a little bit about what I'm trying to do as director and make sure I don't overstay my welcome. But I think that's a wonderful opportunity for you. Did somebody else have a question?
Nothing in the chat, Fred.
Okay. All right, great. So as was mentioned at the beginning, I am running to become the next ARL New England director. I've been encouraged to do this by our vice director, a number of section managers and other club presidents, because they believe, as I believe, that we can take some of the kinds of things that you're seeing here and get clubs all over New England engaged in these activities, and that we could get the ARL to support that work and promote them. Okay. There's also a tremendous amount of concern, I guess I would put it, amongst ARL members that the ARL needs to modernize how it operates and do a better job of being responsive to its members. And I believe I know how to do those things fairly well, and also how to work with and motivate people to join in. You know, these problems, getting up more people into amateur radio, getting amateur radio into schools, creating, and this is really important, positive public impression and agency support for amateur radio the way it once was, better communications, all of that is not going to be solved by people at headquarters in Newington. There aren't enough of them and enough money in the world for them to do it by themselves. And even if they did, if all of you and the other groups like you here in New England and across the United States don't buy into it, it ain't going nowhere. And so my model basically is to work with all of you, and I'm going to show you in a minute how I'm going to do that, to create some world-class programs like you've seen here and others that we haven't seen here across New England. We're going to take those things back into the ARL and we're going to present them as solutions to the problems that we're struggling with. That's the basic idea here. Now, in the introduction, I think it was mentioned, so you already know that I've had a lot of business leadership experience. I've probably been an executive for a good third of my working life in all different kinds of capacities. And every single executive job that I ever had came with an understanding that I had 100 days to prove I could do the job or I would be replaced with somebody who could. I think everybody who holds a leadership position, including your ARL director, ought to have a 100-day plan of how they're going to show that they're actually going to do what they're talking about within that period of time. That's about 3 months. Okay, so here's mine. I've already begun step one. The first thing we need to do, and I've had experience in leading other industry boards in telecommunications of very diverse people with conflicting interests to get together and solve problems. I will spend time with every single person on the board and the whole leadership team at the ARL one-on-one to understand what they're trying to do and try to find common ground to work on these problems. And I know it's there. This is how you align a large group of diverse people to work together and solve problems. Okay. Secondly, it's pretty easy to improve communications, and we're going to start it right here in New England. First of all, we aren't holding cabinet meetings anymore. For those of you who are presidents or club officers, you know that it's customary for a director to hold at least one cabinet meeting with all the presidents, the section leaders for their division, and hams who are interested in what's going on in the ARL and communicate what's happening. Most directors do them around the 2 board meetings a year. I personally don't think that's near enough. I am committing to hold at least 4 cabinet meetings a year. We will have a 2-way communications process, and my vice director, who is on this call, will summarize all the input we've got at the beginning of every cabinet meeting to set the stage of what goes on in those meetings. So we are focused actually on the feedback we're getting and what we can do to facilitate what our members are telling us they need. Okay. I also am committed to providing as much open communications as I possibly can. and also working within the administrative process of the ARL to open things up more. There are some specific actions that are being discussed inside the board context of how we operate that I think will make a big difference in the openness of the process. And I'm going to be all in on supporting and pushing for those things. And then lastly, we need a director who's going to solve the whole problem. You know, some folks say that, well, directors have a certain expertise. Maybe they're into antenna stuff or they're in MCOM, and that's enough. I don't think that's near enough. We need a director who's got the skills and can set up a structure around their division that will solve the whole problem. So here's how I'm going to do that. For starters, I'm going to appoint 4 assistant directors to work with the field staff and all the club presidents to focus on mentoring and new ham development, outreach and STEM learning in schools, promotion of emergency communication and public service activities, and that's a big focus for also general support for amateur radio. And then a 4th director who's going to be focused on promoting the use and protecting our spectrum. Okay, these people are going to work with me and with the vice director to work with all of you to create programs and get the field staff focused on solving problems and getting effective working programs across New England in those areas. And we're going to take those things back into the ARL and say, why can't the ARL do this? It's already working here. Okay, that's going to be much faster than relying on a board-driven, committee-oriented process that sometimes takes years to create results. And by the way, the other advantage of doing it that way is the people who actually have to make those programs work are going to be the ones that are creating them and promoting them, which is essential for anything at any scale that's going to help the hobby as a whole to work. And then lastly, I've spent the last 6 years of my life trying to build a successful amateur radio club. And I know how effective clubs can be. And I am not here just to talk to you because there's an election. I'm here to start the job that I'm committing to do right now. And there's no way we can continue that unless I, the vice director, and my assistant directors spend considerable time with you on a regular basis in club meetings, trying to understand what you think and get input and get you motivated to help. And so I am going to personally commit to attend at least 6 club meetings a quarter. And I'm going to ask the vice director, who's already doing this, and the assistant directors to do the same. And if enough meetings stay on Zoom in the long term, I could probably do 3 times that many. The only real big comments that I have to improve this is that when the first 100-day plan is, we need the 200-day plan. And we'll have one of those too. And I'm sure there's more that we want to work on together than just this, but this is my starting point. So I'm going to be holding a town hall meeting next Wednesday at 7 o'clock to answer questions and talk about some of this stuff a little bit more that I'm trying to do. I'd encourage you all to consider signing up and being part of that and learning more. You can sign up at ab1oc.org/town hall. And what I'd like to do now is just ask, what are your thoughts on this? Does it seem like the right sort of stuff to be focusing on? Does it make sense? Are there important things that I'm missing? What feedback do you have for me?
Well, personally, from my standpoint, this is Rob, K1RCT. I think that there needs to be a considerably larger effort to reach out to youth and not only obtaining and retaining youth, but some of the older new members that join kind of lose it right after they get their first license. They kind of fall through the crack. And I think there needs to be some effort to try to keep those people involved, because they are also key to trying to get new and youthful members to join our ranks.
Yep, and they're also a key part of the mentoring that we were trying so desperately to create as well, Rob. So I 100% agree with that. That one of the reasons that I'm trying to create these assistant director slots is to scale the amount of time that is actually spent for solving problems like the one you just described. And it doesn't mean that I'm not going to be involved. As a matter of fact, that if anything, I may drive my assistant directors a little crazy because I'm too involved, because I really care about this stuff. But this is the way we're going to get stuff done. And if I am your director, we are going to focus on solving the whole problem, not just one piece of it. And what you just described is number 1 on my agenda.
I have a question from the chat from Don Gwynn. Please give us the link to sign up for the meeting. Just
Yep.
maybe show that on your screen again.
Yep, and I will actually drop a PDF of this presentation in your Zoom chat when we're done here, but it's ab1oc.org/town hall, one word.
Perfect.
Okay, and you can reach me at ab1oc@arl.net if you have questions, comments, suggestions, or if I could help you with anything at all.
Any other questions from anyone else? Observations, comments?
All right, well, I really appreciate you all hanging with me. I hope I haven't overstayed my welcome too much. And
Not at all.
whatever happens with the election, please go out and do something great to bring new people in. Figure out a mentoring project. Take some of those opportunities that are at your doorstep in schools. Focus on making amateur radio a more diverse group of people. All these things are great projects that you can do. And if just 10% of the clubs in New England do something, imagine how much better the environment for amateur radio will become here.
So I have one question for you. How does Nashua NARS dealing with COVID and the effects of COVID for these last almost 2 years now, I guess?
I'll tell you a funny story. We grew over 150 members during COVID. It's
Yeah,
been the fastest growth part. And let me tell you how we did that. We were very aggressive at taking all of our programs online on Zoom, like you're doing here. Okay. And we also spent an extraordinary amount of time in just spending sort of in chat kinds of sessions, sort of, chewing the rag, if you will, at the beginning and ends of our meetings, and just trying to substitute some of that social activity that we lost online. We also have a very vibrant net, two nets actually we do every week, one on a local repeater system. And the way we run that is we check everybody in the normal way, and then we have somebody, usually net control, ask a question. Everybody takes a turn and answer it. It's usually like, what are you doing in amateur radio this week? Do you have an antenna project? Are you going to the ham exposition? Did you operate in field day from your home station? So we kind of use our second net is a 10-meter HF net, which is even more informal, where we kind of chew the rag. So we used on-air activities to try to supplement and take the place of some of the things we couldn't do face-to-face. Now, we did manage to do a face-to-face field day this year. Again, it was a smaller one than usual because we had to be COVID safe. But and we're also doing soda activations and that kind of stuff. Again, outdoor activities, as long as you don't let the group get too compressed in a closed space, can actually still be done pretty safely. So those are also good ways to fight the COVID mess.
Our group too is we've got a very dynamic president, so he's very active, and we have probably 5 nets a week. We meet on Saturdays for fox hunts. Now we're doing POTA activations on Saturdays and fox hunts on Sundays, and I have to say, through a group of people that just have some very large energy reserves, we were able to not only retain our membership, but grow our membership through COVID.
Yeah. Yep. The same sort of thing. It sounds like you're doing a lot of the same stuff we did successfully.
Yeah, we actually are. What I'm amazed is you must be drinking 47 Red Bulls every 20 minutes.
That's what it seems like.
There's not enough time in the day to do everything that you're planning on doing, but somehow you get it done. So,
what I would tell you, I'll just tell you a little personal story. Amateur radio changed my life. I grew up in a very poor family. Neither of my parents had a high school education. I was probably on a track to work on a dairy farm for my entire life, which is pretty hard work. And had it not been for an uncle who got me involved, he was a shortwave listener. He didn't have a license, but he got me involved in radio and got me on a path to ultimately led me to become an engineer and a ham. That's right where I would have ended up. My commitment, and I'm retired now, I have all my time, literally 7 days a week going into amateur radio. I'm going to do the damnedest I can to make that experience for other people.
Yep.
And I know you all, I bet you that many of you have very similar stories in your lives. And this is the reason that it's so important for us to solve these problems. We are the people that have benefited the most from amateur radio. We're the ones who love it, believe in it, see what it can do for people. You are the folks that we need to get out in front of the rest of the community to do all the things that we talked about here and more. And that's how we're going to get this hobby in good shape and get it vibrant again.
Well, you know,
We're running out of time. It's important we do it now.
there is another side, not to be a nattering nabob here, but when I first started as president, I set about setting up a bunch of committees, and I actually got some negative pushback from members. Several members said that they joined this club because they wanted to have fun. It was a hobby, and they thought that there was too much work. One person told me that he felt like he was coming to class whenever there was a meeting and waiting for the next homework assignment. So it's great to say I want everyone out in front and everyone's going to work as hard as I do when you're going to go to 6 clubs a quarter. But there are a bunch of members that may actually be negatively impacted by that because they feel that they don't want to put that much time in. And someone said, this hobby is supposed to be fun. And I said, you know, the harder I work, the more it seems like fun for you. And what you have is a passion that is clearly special. You have a gift. You could probably sell ice to an Eskimo. But I think there's a certain, as president of the club, I need to be sensitive to the membership, some of whom are staring at me right now, and I know what they're thinking. I can see thought bubbles. So I think, you know, they say everyone's now familiar with the phrase, how do you eat an elephant? How do you eat a cow? One hoof, one tusk, whatever at a time. And that's what I've done with the club, putting out a variety of things for people to pick and choose. You know, the fact that you launched, you know, a balloon 100,000, you know, feet up in the sky is impressive. I'm sure a lot of people would be interested in that, but basically we're fox hunting and we're doing Dunkin' Donuts on the air and those kinds of things. So I think in total, what you want to accomplish can be done, but the degree to which you do, I mean, you must spend an enormous amount of time with the schools and with the kids and so forth. It's really remarkable. And one quick question: of the 436 members that you said you have, how many come to a meeting?
Usually about 50. Usually about 50. But here's the thing you have to understand. When you have a group this big, people are looking for different things. Some people want to go to amateur radio club meetings. Other people, a different 50, will show up at tech nights. Right. Some folks are there for all the online training that we have and the mentoring that we do. Some folks are there because we did boot camp and they want to take advantage of those resources. And I'm sure you see the same thing. I think you just said this, Ed. And by the way, you have probably one of the largest clubs in New England, so you're doing a great job. Not everybody, when you get beyond a small group, is going to want to participate in everything. And your strength is in the diversity of the things you can offer. You know, one of the things I constantly tell my board is, if we want to continue to grow, we have to find new activities to draw in new groups of people. Okay, and that's a good thing. What I would say to you about doing this work is you'll never have your whole club or even most of it doing any one of these activities. But if just 10% of your members participate in one of 4 different things, you'll be one of the top clubs in New England, if not one of the top clubs in the United States. And I bet you're already getting close to that. So one way you can look at everything I shared here is maybe I can see that there are a few people on this call who would probably get behind some of these projects. You know, I think getting those 3 or 4 people to start is not going to be that hard for you to do. Look at some of this stuff as the next thing you're going to bring into your club to help engage, you know, more of your members. And as those things work, some of them will succeed and other people will join in because they're going to have fun doing them. Nobody in Nashua that gets paid. Nobody is an indentured servant or has a contract. Everybody does what we do because they enjoy it and they enjoy, you know, helping people and making a difference. Don't look at this as the only thing your club does, but do look at it as a great way to make your club broader and build on, you know, your membership and some of the things that you bring to the community. And I will tell you that if you focus on this stuff, you're going to attract a lot of new people. I can almost guarantee that.
Well, one of the things that I brought up to the members last month was a relationship of some sort. It could be looser, it could be more involved with the Yale Amateur Radio Club, because they have built an Earth EME station.
There you go.
At Yale, and they don't have a place anymore to actually have a station. So we can provide a radio station. They can provide the EME activities. They have the, they also built it to talk to the space station, but the guy who was president graduated. So we're getting involved with the Radio Astronomy Club too, potentially. So all these things are there. It takes time to see how they develop.
Yeah.
I think you've got a lot that you're planning on doing. And we look forward to the opportunities to work with you. I think the club has grown, as Rob has said. I guess from about 70 or 80 or so when I joined to about 116 now.
Wow.
So a lot of it's been because of the VE sessions, and it's word of mouth. It's all the nets. We have a net or a Zoom every night except Friday night.
Wow. That's great.
So it's a big club, but it's it's been an honor and a privilege to work with everyone. But we'll see how things go. We'll certainly be supportive of your efforts. And if there are any other questions, a little after 9, I know a lot of you have to go to bed. So
let me just drop that. Let me drop that link to the presentation in here so you all have that into your chat. Just let me get the Dropbox link here. Here we go. And I'm here if you have any follow-on thoughts. Reach out to me. Join the town hall. Whatever happens with the election, do something to help the future of amateur radio. When I started running for this, I didn't plan on doing this or even looking for it. I had a bunch of people that I really respect a lot suggest that this was a way that we could do some good work together. Okay. Whatever happens with the election, please, please, please focus on some of the things we talked about. You can make a huge difference with only a small amount of effort with a handful of people on some of these projects. If you have members that want to do it, go do it. That's what this campaign for me is really all about, more than anything else. And I don't necessarily have to be elected to succeed. I think I can probably get a lot more done if I do. And I also think I can help some of the internal issues that the ARL's wrestling with, because I've got experience as a professional doing that kind of work. But what we really need is the community to get engaged and help get amateur radio stronger.
Well, we thank you very much for all of your time and your efforts. And I thank you. What impressed me is that we had, I think, Rob, if I'm right, a max of 32 people.
Yeah, we had a max 32 tonight.
Wow.
And there's still 24 that are here and awake. So that's an achievement. So
I have a club public service announcement I gotta make. We're still looking for operators for US Island's QSO party this Saturday from Fireworks Island. I know I've been badgering you guys through the reflector, but if you think you can come down, if you don't want to commit to a time frame, just come down. You're probably going to be able to sit down and operate the club station. So we're going to have at least 2 antennas and at least 1 station, possibly even an FD8 station. But think about coming down this Saturday and supporting the cause. We're going to be there from probably about 0800 to 1700, about 5 p.m.
Also, Ed, if I could just say a few words, I actually got into ham radio through astronomy and built several radio astronomy telescopes, and was very into it for a while. I don't have a place where I can really do it now, except perhaps the Yale's observatory in Bethany, which no longer belongs to Yale, but I know the fellow who does. And
I hear Arecibo is available.
Yeah.
Yes, I think it is. But there's going to be a lot of work to that one. So,
Bob, if you do get involved in something like that, a project like that, or the EME project that you talked about, those are wonderful high-tech things that most people can't imagine you can do with amateur radio. Make that a showcase for people who don't understand amateur radio, for schools, for new people. You'd be surprised how many folks you can attract. Amateur radio is a much higher tech hobby than most people perceive, I think.
Yeah. Well, I have limited energy. I'm kind of sick right now, but hopefully getting better and would very much. I think radio astronomy is something that's been really wild. I mean, picking up the black hole at the center of the galaxy and hearing Jupiter and all that stuff is a lot of fun. Yeah, so
That's where N1GNV lives, I think. Doesn't he tell us that all the time?
yeah, well,
Center of the universe.
I do EME work on 2 meters, and I don't exactly consider the noise from the center of the universe a good thing.
Well, there you go, John. You have 30 seconds for rebuttal, Mr. B.
I am the noise from the center of the universe.
Oh, damn.
Now, he just admitted that he's noise. I can't believe this.
Somebody's got to do it, right?
Yeah, if you listen closely, it sounds like nay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you once again very much, and good luck in your efforts. Thank you all for attending. I think this was an excellent session.
Thank
and
you.
I hope to get Mike Walters W8ZY for next month. I have to twist his arm, but I will try doing that.
I'm going to
Alrighty,
put out
thank
the
you
link.
all.
I'm going to
Thank
put
you
out the
all for
link
the
to. I'm sorry, Fred. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Rob. I'm sorry.
I'm just going to let everybody here know that I'm going to put out the link that Fred put up to our reflector, the Dropbox link he put out. Go ahead, Fred.
Okay.
I just want to thank you all for the opportunity to be here. I really enjoyed it. And remember, I'm here if I can help.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Yep. Good night,
All right.
everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
73.
All right. Thank you.
Very
Very nice.
Great presentation.
Rob, when I checked, it looked like the weekend might be reasonable, so I will be there Saturday, hopefully to take a shift.
Well, I hope so. Just come on down, Ed. You don't have to sign up. Just come on down.
Well, I will if I don't have to save a life.
Right.
So.
I understand. We all have priorities.
Rob, what time you going to be there on Saturday?
If I can get down there tomorrow to pick up stuff, I'll be there very early, like around 7:30. If not, it might be a little after 8.
All right. Are you looking for anything from me besides generator?
Generator, maybe. What do you got for tables? You got any tables?
Matter of fact, I probably will have tables.
Will not.
Will probably.
Oh, that would be very helpful. I think John's going to bring the easy ups and the vertical. I've got the buddy pole. I'm going to pick up the FT991, maybe even an alternate and the laptop.
Okay. I don't know if Dave. I sent Dave a note, and Dave was asking NZ1J about FT8, and I said, well, we weren't planning on it, but if you want to bring a station, have at it.
Well, I'm going to bring the exact FT991 that I set up for FT8 on VHF. I'm sure we will be able to adapt it over with the laptop, but that's only if I have time. And I've got tomorrow off, but I've got a lot of chores to do around the house.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I will be there with. Yeah, I will have tables in the truck because I'm doing that show in Newtown on Sunday, and
okay.
And I'm going to bring my own tables to that, so I'll have more tables than we need.
I think we got enough easy ups. We'll have the right gear, I think. So I don't think we have a need for.
Okay. Power. You got power supplies?
They're
helpful.
Yeah, they're quite helpful. Especially, I didn't think about that. Thanks for the reminder, John.
Yeah. Well, you can.
Maybe stick one in your back pocket. I'll stick one in my back pocket. We'll have enough.
Well, we can try plugging the radios right into 110 volt AC, but that might not be
the
best idea.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to go up to the EOC tomorrow, hopefully, and as long as I got enough time, I'm sure we'll come up with something, and if not, I'll just go up there Saturday morning, which would be the reason I'm not there at 7.
All right, well, I'll figure to be there at 7 and stake down a spot or something.
Yeah. between Friday and Saturday, I'll have a power supply. Put it to you that way.
All right, well, yeah, I think we only need one really, but
Yeah.
Say, Ed,
I'm gonna stop this here.